To the Whitetail Advantage Podcast with your host, Brett Bovin. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy the show.
What, Braxton? I swear, dude. Are you good?
Yep. Are you good?
Oh, man. All right. I got no words right now. I'm your host, Brett Bovin. Welcome to the Whitetail Advantage Podcast. This is episode 47. Tonight, Dan is not with me tonight, but I do have my good buddy, Braxton. Braxton, say hi to everybody.
Yellow.
And you were on one episode for sure. I don't know about the second
Couple weeks ago, yeah.
Yeah. So you want to give a quick little history on you? A little bio about yourself?
So, I'm 18. I've been hunting my whole life, really. I hunt with Brett. Hunting out there my whole life, really. And really just, hunting's kind of really my main hobby. Football and hunting.
Yeah. And I know you're more of a Hoyt guy, though.
Yeah. Yeah, when it comes to compounds.
Well, if this is your first time tuning into the show, we travel virtually state to state, talking to multiple guests from that state, learning the ins and outs of what it's like to hunt in there. So far, right now, we are in the week of Illinois. Last night, we had a great guest, one of my good old buddies. We're used to work in law enforcement with Jake. Go ahead and check that episode out. Tonight, I'm also looking forward to tonight's guest, Jordan. Excited to go into more of a land management type guy, very good into the food plot. So I know Braxton and I, it's one thing we've been really trying to get into, right, Braxton?
Yeah, definitely. You need to figure out when to start that kind of stuff. Make sure it's going to be ready.
Yeah, and I think it's starting off the right way. I don't want to just kind of start it half cocked. I really want to make sure we do it the right way, and I think we got a good guest to put us in the right direction. So I'm going to be doing two jobs, letting him in and hitting the applause button. Hey, Jordan.
How we doing?
Oh, we're doing good on a great Wednesday night.
You shoot a Hoyt?
Yeah. I don't like the Matthews. It hurts my shoulder. And I'm young, so I don't want to start that early.
I know. Well, that was the lift though, right? Braxton?
Yeah, I didn't have any problems with the other ones. Just the lift.
It's okay. Jordan, I shoot a Matthews. I see. Braxton, that's the way to go.
Yeah, he's only 18.
We'll get him in the right direction one day.
Whatever you're comfortable with, man. That's what mainly counts.
Yeah, I'm just happy to see him out there in the
Yeah,
woods.
what do you
I've shot Matthews for years.
What do you shoot, Jordan? Yeah,
Sorry?
Which one do you have right now?
I don't. I got.
Which one do you have right now?
I got to use crossbow now. I can't use.
Oh
crossbow.
yeah.
But I shot.
Yeah.
Well, my last one I had was the Verdicts, whichever one we want to pronounce. But I've not gotten to the lift during the new ones yet. Like I've seen them, held them, but I've not been able to shoot them and all that good stuff. But man, 18. You know how many deer I'd kill with a bow by the time I was 18?
Well, I just started bow hunting last year, so I don't even have one.
2. I didn't kill a
Really?
buck with a bow till I was a sophomore in college. There wasn't a lot of deer.
I didn't kill a deer at home this year. I got one in Oklahoma.
Things were definitely different. When
But
I started
nothing at home.
deer, there wasn't a good deer herd. There wasn't a lot of deer. I live right next to State Park, and there just wasn't deer. I mean, I'm in ag country. In '95, my dad shot a 127-inch 10-pointer, and it was number 2 in the county that year.
Wow.
And that's how much things have changed in 30 years.
So, Jordan, can you give a quick little bio about yourself?
A little breakdown. So,
Yeah.
like, like Braxton was saying, I started hunting young age, started gun hunting, got on a bow kind of on my own. My dad hunted a little bit. He had some friends who hunted a lot that kind of would take me under the wing and at least kind of get me started. When I gave him my first bow, which was like an XI Silverhawk, which that's going old school. But one of those, back then the bows were all 30-inch draws and you were hitting your ear and shooting double X78 aluminum, throwing thunderheads into a hay bale, back in the old days. But just kind of stayed with it. And always, like, I've worked everywhere else, but hunting's always been kind of my passion background. It's always been my go-to. Met a lot of great people along the way, and I've been pretty successful growing up doing it, and just kind of got me to where I'm here. I talk with you fellers today. It's not my everyday job, but I've more or less made a hobby into a lifestyle out of it. So
Now, how long you been kind of in the I don't want to say food plot business, but how long have you been kind of working on that, on your craft of your own?
probably about going on pushing probably 15 years now. So I farm also. I grew up on a farm, family farm, grain farm. And it's always hard to talk about doing food plots because my dad and my uncles were like, why do you want to go plant food for the deer? They got 300 acres of corn sitting right there, And when finally kind of started breaking away and doing what little bit I could with a four-wheeler and here and there, and then kind of showing how well some of it was working, to then my dad started to help me, get bigger equipment out and start doing some more bigger plots. And hold on, I got a cat down here. It's driving me nuts.
Man, I don't know what's going on.
But I've done a little bit of everything. A lot of mine's been trial and error. When I started doing this, there wasn't a lot of podcasts. There was still magazines.
Yeah.
It's definitely come a long way. But a lot of my experience has been just trial and error. And there's been a lot more error than there has been success. But, one thing with food plots, you got Mother Nature you're dealing with too. So, that's one thing you cannot control regardless. We've been, the whole Midwest been kind of drought like the last few years. So, we've had plots, but they've not been the best. But
what's it like trying to deal with a food plot during basically no rain coming?
No rain?
Yeah, what's it like having to process all that and trying to figure that stuff out on top of it all?
If you got an idea what might be happening, or if it ain't too late, there are certain things that thrive better in a warm year, like milo, sorghum, sunflowers. That's always kind of a go-to. If you can get them up and get a head on them, great. If not, at least you got some greenery there. If it's a drought like we had back in 12 when EHD smoked us, I had 4 acres of sunflowers out for a dove patch, and the deer absolutely annihilated to where I didn't have any sunflowers to dove hunt. It's the only thing the deer had to eat in how many square miles, because that was a bad year. That was a year the farmers were bush hogging corn down, and there just was nothing. It's hard to predict. Hope you get a good year. You see guys now that are irrigating their food plots and going to that route. I got fire trucks out there. That's hardcore, but guys do it. But a lot of the seed mixes I use, like I like chicory. Chicory is a good drought tolerant. So whatever kind of plot I got going, I'm going to put a little something extra in there. Because I don't want just like one great food plot. I want a little bit of everything, because you want what the neighbor doesn't have. You want something different at the same time. If this one fails, I want to know that this one's going to come up, or vice versa. I need to have something. It may all fail but one seed, but that one seed may be what brings me through the year.
Do you at least kind of have one, like a guarantee, like I know this is going to succeed no matter what, and I'll have other little food plots around that are like test run, trial run there?
If you can get a good batch of clover established, clover is tough. It's hard to get going, and it's hard to kill once it's going. Now, it can burn up in a drought, but a lot of it will come out of it over time. You can round up clover, glyphosate, and not kill it all. But clover is very hard to get started. You can start it too early and it'll burn up. You can plant it too thick and it'll kill itself out. But once you get clover going, and then you can maintain it, spray it, and keep it clean, you've got a good 5, 6, 8 year food plot that you're just maintaining. And that's a go-to of mine in some bottom ground that it holds moisture even on a drought year. And it does get dry. but it goes underwater a lot. So it was kind of hard to get going. Once I got established, though, it's nice because I can't get a tractor back there in spring. You know, I can't get there. If we do have a wet spring, which we normally do have a wet spring, if we get in kind of drought, it's usually in the later months. But clover's something that the deer love all year round. It's always green. It's always there. So regardless of what I have elsewhere, I will always have some clover established somewhere, whether it be a logging road, whether it be a 10, 12, 15-foot break around my food plot, whether it be the access to the food plot. Whatever I can do, I will always have clover somewhere close.
Seems like everyone kind of just falls back to clover and they kind of build up from there. Am I wrong?
No, alfalfa is great, but alfalfa is expensive. It's very tedious. It's hard to keep once you get it going. You got to worry about bugs. You got to. I got a buddy of mine who's got several farms. One of his farms in Iowa, he's got like a 8-acre alfalfa, and deer just absolutely annihilate it. But you know, there's a lot goes into that. And for the most part, I've just went with the clover because I haven't had a big enough piece yet that I'm ready to just tear out and put the money and time into alfalfa. I'm not going to do it for 1 acre, 2 acres. It's going to need to be a bigger plot for me to say, okay, I'm doing alfalfa. Most likely, if I do alfalfa, it's going to be big enough I'm going to bale it.
Yeah.
That way you can keep it maintained throughout the year. So my go-to is just always been clover. I mix chicory with my clover because
like you blend them together and they
blend them together, frost seed them. They both come up together. Over years, I've kind of noticed that clover might choke a little chicory out. But the chicory is drought resistant, and just every year I go back and frost seed whether it needs it or not. Throw a little chicory, throw a little clover on it, and I can spray it with like a Whitetail Imperial's Arrest, and I can spray it with clethidone, and it will not kill the broadleaf killer and the grass killer will not kill clover, will not kill chicory, will not kill the alfalfa. So by mixing those two together, I can spray them for broadleaves and spray them for grass, and they both will survive and thrive. The clover's held a little back because it's dry. Chicory's doing pretty decent. If it's real wet,
you think clover's the most successful?
Do what?
You think clover's the most successful food that you could probably plant?
If you're going to hunt the entire season, clover's always going to be green. You know, if you're dedicated, like I'm going to draw an Iowa tag, and every 2 years being out of state, so I'm going to hunt the late season because it takes 6 years to draw a bow tag, then I would lean more on, you know, the wheat and the brassicas than late winter. But if you're going to a piece of home property that you're going to spend, you know, your entire fall on hunting, I would have clover somewhere. That way there's a guaranteed food. And I went to a food plot meeting years ago for a company called Pennington, and I was talking to them, a little seminar they had. And that guy had a good point. When you do your food plots, when you're changing over or when you're going to tear them up and redo them, do them in thirds. And the clover will kind of play into this too because the clover will always be there. And instead of tearing your plot all at once and redoing it, you just took all the food away that them deer are used to. If you do it in thirds, by the time you finish that last third, that first third is sprouted and coming up. And that continuous cycle of food is always there. The deer are not having to leave to go find something else. And when you do a food plot, the first 2 or 3 years, you might be like, well, this kind of sucks. You're not using it. You got to give it time. You may have 1 year they hammer the food plot, but a lot of times you just give it a little time because them fawns that are born in that food plot know that food is there. So by year 3, by year 4, you're getting them 2-year-olds that, hey, this food's always been here, to where the mama just remember there was food there one time. If that makes any sense to you, kind of generational wise, once you get established, give it a few years. Don't just judge it off 1 year.
Can you say that one more time? So if you're taking like a square chunk of land, you're breaking that up into thirds. So you're kind of moving. All right, I want to chunk this up and move this into food plots and not touch the rest of it. Then I'm going to move the middle part of it and do the food plot, and then kind of move the last one. Are you doing it? Can you say that one more time? Explain a little again.
Either do it in thirds, or if I'm on a property, say 40 acres, and I've got 2 food plots on it, I'm not going to do both food plots the same time.
Okay.
I'll do one while one's left. You know, as one starts to thrive and come up, then I'll do the next one. I never want to take away the entire food source. Even though I'm putting food back into it and it's going to be a great food plot, I'm never taking it away from them. There's always something there.
So there's something they're used to where they don't want to just kind of freak them out right away.
Right. Yeah. So if you have a logging road or just a field break in clover, you know, if you take away their soybeans or the brassicas or their wheat or the oats, whatever you get out there, they can still revert back to that little bit of clover, and they're not leaving the county. They ain't got to go everywhere to find food, which there's a lot of browse they're going to eat too. But deer get kind of lazy on what they know there's food there, and they'll hang tight. You always hear talk about doe pods, and the doe, big old mama doe will kind of have her own little pod or little harem, and she'll take over a spot and run the younger bucks off. And it's kind of the same way. They're holding to their favorite. So it's just, once you get established, don't just take it all away from them at once.
Real quick before I jump into my other question, you mentioned frost seeding. I always was curious. Can you kind of break that down exactly what frost seeding means?
So frost seeding, like around here for us, usually Valentine's Day, February, it's where you want to hit it where you get them high 20 nights and then low 40, low 50 days. And you're broadcasting seed, just throw it on the ground what's there. And at night, that ground's freezing. Well, during the day, that ground thaws and that seed starts working its way down. And then at night, it freezes. And then the day it thaws and that seed slowly starts letting itself down to the ground along with moisture. So you're not working the ground up. Most time when I do that, I've previously have a plot there, or I previously have the ground conditioned, which we can get to that in a little bit. But I can't just go out there and throw seed on top of a fescue mess, because you're probably not going to get nothing, because the fescue is going to shadow it out if it does come up. But all you're doing, you're taking advantage of the freeze and thaw of the dirt. You're throwing it right on top of the ground, but as it freezes and thaws, that seed's going to work its way in.
Are you doing that on kind of like an already established piece?
So what I like to do, like I did some switchgrass the other day. So I put switchgrass behind a blind, kind of break up a part of the bottoms, knowing that I was going to do this year. Last year, I put it into a brassica.
Okay.
So turnips, radishes. Well, right now, what's left is a couple little turnip and radishes out there that are rotting down. What's left here eaten. Well, the turnip head and the brassica, they shadow, right? So not as much weed pressure, because the tops have shadowed all fall, late summer. Now the deer have cleaned it up. Well, now the radishes and turnips where are left have rotten. So now there's holes in the ground where they were. So now the ground's aerated. And also all that rotten thatch has just created more nutrients for the ground. And when I go out there in February, I'm almost looking at bare dirt. And I'm throwing my seed out there to frost seed, and I'm literally seed to soil contact right there.
When do you think the best time to start is?
If you're talking about you're wanting to put a brand new plot never done before.
We'd have to start fresh.
I would go in and just shoot for this year to have something green for the winter. So I would, where you guys at? You're in Michigan?
Yes. Yeah. Southwest Michigan.
You're a little bit earlier than me. So, wet or dry, third week of July for turnips. If you read the almanac and follow that, which I do all that too, just because I've always been part of that, like playing that game. But, it's usually around that 3rd of July. But I have planned, of course, up in late August and been fine. But around July, you start thinking about, and here in Illinois, in July and August, it gets hotter than heck. We've been on get rain for 30 days. So that's why you wind up planting later. But always kind of shoot for that earlier summer to get your brassicas out. And I'd get them out. And if you got any bald spots that didn't come up, I'd go out there and throw some wheat down on top of it just to kind of get a filler, get some greenery, and get something just there down this year. The deer will start messing with it. And then next year, when you go into that bare dirt, or that dirt that's had previous thatch and previous turnips and previous nutrients in it, that is when I'd go in and establish, maybe a clover break around it, or maybe a clover down the middle of it. And then I could come back, later and do, soybeans on the side, or if you want to do any kind of more brassica that year, if you want to do a spring plot, you go in there and put soybeans down. Most likely they're going to annihilate them. If they don't, you just go in there when the leaves turn yellow and throw your brassica down on top of the ground. And your brassicas will work themselves down with the rain. You'll have brassicas come up through your soybeans. Some guys do it with corn and have good luck with that. They'll do corn rows on 30-inch rows, and they'll get brassicas come up through the corn. You really got to keep your corn clean, because you can't just throw it down in weeds and it come up. You're going to have good bare dirt. Seed to soil contact is always going to be a must. But that's what I do this year. I'd concentrate on getting it cleaned up, and I'd concentrate on getting just something good fall, winter plot out there. And that's really where I'm at, especially the deer really need the nutrients. They've got food all summer. They've got woody browse. They've got crops. They've got acorns. The time they really need that food is if we get a hard enough winter. And when we do, it's February, March. So, I mean, season's out. So, I mean, a lot of what I'm doing for the deers is I'm not even going to be able to hunt them during that time, but I want to keep my herd healthy. You know, I want them to be okay. I was in Iowa shed hunting a few weeks ago. We had a bad cold snap here. Iowa had a bad cold snap and it stayed cold with snow. We found a lot of dead deer, but I think we found 12 fresh ones that had died winter kill just in a few weeks ago in that winter snow. And that's in Iowa, you know. So, I mean, they had EHD hit them hard, plus that winter kill. I mean, you would fall that chair if I told you how many dead deer we found total.
Wow. That's insane. And then that would be the best time. Well, I'm saying best time, but that's in my opinion, the most critical time was when they've already kind of settled. They're trying to regain everything they just lost through the rut. I mean, both the bucks and the does, and they're trying to recuperate all that stuff they just lost from running and chasing each other.
Yep. And what's always going to be there for food? Clover.
I mean, that's one thing that we were going to be doing was be most likely using clover, because I feel like it's kind of an easy setup to start with. I guess my question would be if you got this open piece of land already, I think what we would have is maybe it's like 6 acres total. Yeah, and it's already kind of got some greens up right there, but not, it's like weird grass, whatever grows. What would you recommend to someone just starting off right away? Like soil testing and like pH level, stuff like that. What would you tell them to do to start?
Yeah, get it cleaned off, of course, whether you got to burn it or what to get it worked. You know, don't go out there first time with some throw and grow type stuff. Work the ground. You know, you can get away with no-till and get away with broadcasting, but you kind of have to build that stage prior to that. You can't just walk out there and glyphosate it and just hope stuff comes up. Stuff will come up, but not to what you're wanting to expect. Now, a 6-acre plot's a pretty good sized plot. So, yes, I'd soil test. If you didn't get it done the first year, I wouldn't make a big deal out of it, because you were taking this soil and the soil's not been touched for years. It's sod or it's old CRP or it's not been messed with. You're getting ready to mess with it. You're getting ready to turn everything over. So if you go in and moldboard plow it, moldboard plow would be great for that, because you're going to take the first couple inches and you're going to lay it over, and you're going to put all that thrash underneath it, and you're going to bring up the 5 inches of topsoil. And you're going to work that, and that's going to be your base. But there's a lot that goes into that. If you go test that soil now, and then next year you've done disturbed it enough, it's going to test differently. So I wouldn't go too far in depth with and some guys might argue with me about it, I wouldn't spend your money this year on soil test. I'd spend your money on getting the plot where you want it, as far as shape, as far as size, as far as the conditioning in the dirt. A turnip and a soybean will grow in concrete. If you get bare dirt, you'll have something. It may not be the stuff we see on TV, but you're going to have something. And then next year you build off that you're building off a clean slate. Then you're not building off what you have a big fescue or weed mess or, you know, whatever big blue stem out there right now.
Yeah.
You'll have a clean canvas to start with next year.
Yeah. It's like basically just a bunch of weeds and a bunch of briars type stuff. But it's basically just kind of like weird knee-high grass, basically. And that's kind of what it used to be, like an old junkyard.
Right.
And it's weird. So it's I'm going to try and, it's like level and then it goes like down a little bit, but it's not like a huge drop off. It's just kind of like a gradual one into like a bowl, but then it flattens out. How would you recommend with trying to build a food plot in that type of layout?
Depending on where your drop off is, that's maybe where I would think about doing the clover. That way, once you're going to disturb it once every so many years, you're not constantly working up that slope and causing erosion. Because you start working that every year and you do have a good rainfall, and that is part of, where she's sloping down, it's going to wash out.
Yeah.
So that might be the spot to put your clover in. And then you're not messing with that every year. It's going to hold together. It's going to do well throughout the fall. Because you can just, I was talking about moldboard plowing. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. You can plow and get a furrow that may never go away. And that's the trench. And the next thing you know, next year it's 2 foot deep. We got a piece of ground that we farm and I hunt. That's HEL. It's a highly erodible ground. We're not allowed to work it. We farm it. We have no-till every year. Per state, we are not allowed to work that ground because it's a clay knob, and when you work it, she washes downstream.
Huh.
So it's good to have that variety. I mean, that'd be great having just being a different than just flat nothing. You know, I'd love that, but I would incorporate something long term in that bend, and that would be your separate, either your soybeans or whatever you want to do. Brassicas, you could break it up that way and have that clover break that'll always be there. Something else to think about also, depending on how you're going to hunt your plot. Like I plant miscanthus. I just planted some the other day. I do have some miscanthus out, giant miscanthus, and for walls and barriers. But I also plant like a killer food plot's got some called Border Patrol, another one called Smokescreen. I believe Vitalize is working on a blend for a wall. I know Whitetail Imperial, I think's even got one. And basically it's like your Egyptian wheat and tall stuff. And it's not going to be there. It's not going to come back every year. It's going to be a 1-year deal. And like Meganthus or the Rhizome, they'll come back every year. But you're building those walls. And those walls are either splitting your plot, you know, building access to your stand, or hiding your plot. Like I got a bottoms that V's, and I plant a wall that way and a wall that way because it's in the bottoms and they're clear, trees up high. Well, I sit for 20 years in stands, watch a deer walk across the middle. I couldn't get to him. So I put a hay bale blind I made. Well, then eventually turned into a box blind I built. And then I wrapped it in miscanthus just to make it look hidden, whatever, you know. But I plant those walls because for 20 years, I watched these bucks cruise down these ridges and look down there in the bottom. And even before I started food plotting it, would look in that bottom. And whether you was rattling or they were just cruising, they didn't see a deer, they left. I put that wall down there. They can't see the other side. So now they have to come down, walk in front of me, and peek around the wall to see what's on the other side. And it works like a freaking dream. I had one wall 2 years ago. I planted a little square around the shack, and I had maybe a 60-foot by 80-foot piece of clover. And behind that was just fescue. And this buck come in, I was sitting with my dad, and this wall is 5 foot wide. It's the width of a tiller, you know, and it's just Egyptian wheat, more or less. And because by that point, everything else is about dead, but you're still just kind of still standing like your stocky stuff. The buck could have just jumped over it. No big deal. It's laying on the ground by this point, late gun season. He walked all the way down, all the way around to the opening, and then come back into us. I mean, we could have shot him right there, but he literally walked a straight line around the perimeter and then come into the plot. It's like all you got to do is like jump 5 foot and you've been in there. But it's a weird thing. It's crazy how much you can choke them down and guide them with the right setup. Now, so I always tell guys, you know, miscanthus is a one-time deal, and it's great. I'm a miscanthus fan if you get the hybrid that doesn't spread, but it costs a lot of money to do that. So you don't want to go out there and put 75 cents a rhizome 3 wide for 100 yards. I mean, several $100, and it not work how you want it to. So I tell guys, get the Egyptian wheat, get these blends that are making these walls and barriers, make what you want, spend a few years tweaking it, what works for you. Then if you want to, then go with your miscanthus. But I wouldn't go miscanthus your first time, because you start playing with walls and stuff as a deer, also learning your plot. It's crazy what you can make them do. And I'm hunting stuff that I've hunted for over 30 years. So, I mean, it ain't like I walked to a new piece of property and put a plot in. I mean, I've been hunting this and kind of know what they're going to do. So from year to year, I just keep learning. But it'd be hard to just walk into something bare and say, I'm going to do this, put a wall here, put a wall there. I would definitely incorporate a wall if you have anywhere that you can be seen from the road. If it can block the access you're walking in. And if it can, I like a plot that's like an hourglass or an L more than I like a straight square. Because you can break it up in so many different ways on your approaches, on your winds. If you have this, you have, few options, to where if you have this, you have more options. And now you're taking your barriers or your plots and you're building these little pinch points, whether you drop a tree top in the plot, because they're lazy. They'll walk around the treetop. They won't jump over it. I mean, it's little things you can do like that. Mm-hmm. Pinch them down, but you don't want to make them so tight they don't want to be there. But I mean, a mature buck, he likes it tight. He wants it to be able to, he wants to rake his side on the brush walking through it. He don't like her wide open.
Yeah.
But when during the rut, he'll be in that wide open if there's does out there.
Huh.
What do you think of like watering holes when it comes to like food plots? Do you think having some sort of water source is also a good idea?
Yes, because I actually built a little pond 3 years ago, and there's water down the neighbor's creek, and there's a pond to the south. There's a little wet spot there. But there's a spot where an old pump jack sit. It's always been wet. So I took my old tractor and I dug it out. It's probably 4 foot deep, and it's probably 20 yards across. But it catches water running off one rag field. So once it filled up, it's never not had water in it. I'm like, I'll try it. What could it hurt? It ain't gonna hurt nothing. You would not believe the amount of wildlife activity on that little water hole. They can literally walk 300 yards to a creek. But the fact that little water is right there, they're bedding right beside it. I'm talking turkeys, deer every day. I've had more pictures on that water than I've had in some of the food plots. And to me, that just goes back to what we're saying. Deer are lazy. Why walk over there and get a drink when I can get one right here? The only problem that promotes, which I've been crossing fingers that don't happen, is EHD, stagnant. You've heard about how it just wipes everything out. It's the midget, it's from stagnant water. I don't want to create a stagnant water hole for whenever EHD does have an outbreak. So there are companies like Killer Food Plot that makes a water additive, which releases organisms into the water that actually eat the larva of what would be the midget, the fly. Also eats like mosquitoes, larvae, so it kind of keeps the bugs down for like your pond by your house. There's several companies, if you kind of get away from the hunting thing and look more into like the healthy pond stuff, you can find other options. I also have a water tank, so I got a well. I'll get some water if I feel like it's going to be, if it's been dry and the water looking like clay red or muddy, I'll fill that 300-gallon water tank and I'll go back and put some fresh water in it. Am I helping? I don't know. It feels like I'm helping. But a water hole, definitely. I had some buddies that have done like the troughs, like you buy at Tractor Supply, and had great luck, but they had to go back and fill them. So I kind of incorporated mine where a slope was where it'd catch water, kind of like your plot was talking about. Is there anywhere coming off of the high ground or coming off an ag field where you can maybe catch that water? That's all I did. And I mean, it is, Brian from Habitat Podcast shot a doe off of it year before last. My buddy from Texas shot a 10-pointer off of it this year. I mean, it's turned into a freaking honey hole, and all it was an old pump jack site where nothing grew because it was basically like an old salt pit or just dry clay and rock. I had to put a food plot in it for years, and we get nothing. So I just dug a dang hole in it, filled it with water, and I got all kinds of deer. I'm a firm believer in the water. It scares me about promoting an EHD outbreak with stagnant. So I would push somebody to do bigger, better, maybe to try to keep it clean.
I've seen Jeff Sturgis. He's been doing a lot more like those old school watering pool type deals, and he'll build those and put those in the ground, and he'll throw some dirt in there, and he'll throw a log in there, obviously, to help make sure if anything fell in there. And then he'd kind of, I don't know if he'd scrape the leaves up, but I know he'd brush them away sometimes, and he'd throw some greenery down so grass can kind of build up, because I know all that stuff is going to build up from that dirt around that water. So that stuff's where he's going to build it the most. What are your opinions on that?
Well, if you put like a little water hole out there, like one of them like little pools or like in black tubs, like I think we're talking about,
yeah,
you get a lot of deer using it. It's just going to be a tracked up mess around it. It's going to be hard to have anything there other than dirt. I mean, when they get to actually using it, I mean, you go to my pond now and it just looks like you're going to herd cattle through it. And again, wow. The water level's changing a little bit here and there. Now it might not be as much in one of them tubs, but I would definitely build up something to try to catch what rainwater I could.
Yeah.
But so Pat Reeves was somebody who, when I started looking at ponds, I kind of was watching what he was doing. He did it to a level that I never did do it, but he would go with the skid steer and he'd push out a pond about the size of what I did, made mine kind of mirroring his, but he would lay down a layer like they use on like oil rigs for salt pits, or a layer like a pool liner, more or less. And then he put dirt over that. So the pond never leaked, because a pond will leak, a dam will bust, ground will crack. he'd do that and bury it, and within a year or two, it's all grown up around it. You don't even know that liner's there, but he's got water that is not escaping at all. And if I was going to go that route, I think that is a good idea. I would really, look up what he's done, but I do that, of course, on property that maybe I owned that wasn't a lease property or wasn't, a rent property, because that's a lot of work, and that you're making big changes at that point. Kind of like your food plot you're talking about, you're really moving things. I mean, you're walking in their living room and you're knocking walls out. I mean, they're going to know it.
Yeah.
But I firm believer in the water. Go big. I got a buddy who's got several farms across the Midwest, and if it doesn't have running water, he's not even interested. It's got to have a running creek of fresh water.
Really?
I've looked at several farms with him, and Trent Spiegel, Heartland Bowhunter. He's with Midwest Land, and went and looked at several farms with him, and that was a big kicker. It's got to have running water. And my buddy ended up actually going with a farm that had a big old stone bottom creek in it that come out of a river that had running water, and it's always had water, and it's never been dry. And he's like, that's one thing I go for. I don't necessarily want to look for work. I put the biggest plot, or where's the closest bean field. Do I have water? So I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm really kind of changed my perspective on things the last few years when it comes to water. It's definitely a game changer all the way around.
When you say it's changed your perspective, what do you mean?
Before I was like, well, hell, there's water in the creek. There's water down over there. The neighbor's got a pond. I live next to a state park. There's a lake right there. They can walk 400 yards and be in a lake.
Yeah.
Why would they walk to a 20 by 15 mud hole when literally they're all on a 20 by 15 mud hole now?
Yeah. That's funny, because I had an argument with my dad about this topic. When was it? November, December, irrelevant. But I was like, yeah, next year I really want to put in just some small little water holes around here. He goes, why the F are you going to do that when there's a giant pond on the neighbor's property? They can go there. And then there's another smaller pond on the east side of the property. And I was like, why would I do that when I can get them to possibly come here and stop in that watering hole where I want them to go? And that they don't have to travel as far when I'm putting the water right almost 50 yards from where they're bedding.
That's the exact same scenario as me. My neighbor behind me had a big pond. Literally where my water hole's at, you can walk 100 yards to the bottom of the hill, and it's an old pond. The dam's busted, but it holds a little wet spot. And you can go 300 yards to a creek that's 15 foot deep. They do not need water where I'm at. That's why I never even tried doing it until about 3 years ago. And I did it, and now they're all right there. It's crazy. I mean, maybe it's just my spot or whatever. I don't know, but I'm a firm believer in water. It still scares me with the EHD about making a stagnant hole.
Yeah, and I especially know here in Michigan, and it gets hot in July. And heck, Braxton, what was it? I think it was like 85 on opening day last year. Like, I was sweating just walking 20 feet going outside.
Yeah.
Like, this sucks. So it's like, I wish I had a place where I had a smaller water hole for the deer to come there, because they're going to want to go there most likely.
Yeah. And where I'd have a water hole, I'd make it thick as I could around it, because that's what's going to hold a mature buck. And in the hot weather, if you're planning on hunting in the early season hot weather and you're within close to a bed, if he's going to feed to that water, he's going to take the thickest route.
Thick, like
briars,
stuff.
Hinge cut, make it just the damnedest mess. They'll find their way to it.
Oh, because they want that safety feeling.
Yeah. So my pond's actually in that little open spot, but 2 years ago I had it logged. So I built a pond. The next year I had the property selective cut. So I had big treetops laying along the ridges beside it, to where they got to fight their way to it other than coming from the field. And they were literally bedding right beside it in the treetops. I was in there today shed hunting, and I almost stepped. Two of them got up, and I'm like, dang, they're bedding right there. I literally almost stepped on one. She blew up out of there, and me and her seen each other at the same time. But I was always against logging something else, man. I was always like, growing up around here, I'm like, man, why would you log? Sell your timber. I don't get it. And then I started hanging out with guys like Jared Van Hees, Habitat Podcast. He started interviewing people, talking about it, and I started seeing the benefit of actually farming your trees. Something I didn't know when my dad logged his piece was that, I just never thought about it. Heard a white oak live forever. White oak lived 250 years, but a black oak pin oak only lived about 80. Well, where I'm at 80 years ago was when farming was established around here, and the fence rows all got big old points with big old pin oak trees in them that are now dying and falling in the field because they're 90 years old. It takes a bulldozer to move them. So might as well get some money out of them. Might as well sell them. They're dying. And I did that. So we went into my dad's and I took no white oak, even though lumber's at an all-time high and white oak was the money. I said, no. But I took all the pin oak and, some black oak, some red oak, took out a cherry that was there, and hoping that I can let the white oaks thrive and come up in the open, and then maybe 5-10 years from now, cut the white oaks that are there. But where I'm at also next to the state park, back in the late 70s, during the Lady Bird Johnson deal, she released autumn olive, Russian olive on the state ground for wildlife. It's an invasive species that is an absolute nightmare. And I'm right across the road from the duck subimpalement. And if you ever dealt with that stuff, it literally grows to this big around in a year, and you cannot kill it without killing the root. You can go cut it and spray brush killer all you want on it. You got to get down to that root and kill that root, spray that root. And when you spray it, you got to do it within like 10 minutes of cutting it. But when you go to pulling roots on them, trying to pull them out, because they're soft trees, you can rip them out of the ground with a tractor. But the damn root's 30 feet long, so the root's over here, and you're over here trying to pull it out. So all the filled edges, all the woods, but now these open spots that are created from the treetops being taken down and logged are now thriving up with Russian olive, which is now going to choke out my oaks. So it created a whole nother line of work to do. And I started getting into the TSI program. And it, for me, it's created a mess. I know there's autumn olive everywhere else too, but I got it real bad where I'm at, which deer love it. It's cover, but it's an invasive species that is an absolute nightmare, especially when you're farming. Because stuff grows so fast and so hard to kill.
That sounds annoying.
Oh my God, it's horrible. And I mean, it comes up in the middle of the timber, in the middle of the shade. I mean, it's horrible. And, one of the foresters retired here off State Park a couple of years ago, and his main deal was to try to get in and kill as much as he could on this side of the lake before he retired, and it looked good for about 6 months. And then all that stuff come back up. And I got buddies that put in food plots for a living, got a business. They do a lot of Bomar's personal stuff, great guys. And he goes in, Justin, with one of them mulching head for the skid steers. He'll mulch that all mold down that root ball. He'll open the door and jump out and soak it in straight glyphosate. And I forgot if the root turns yellow, you got it, or it turns white, you got it. If not, you got to go back and do it again. But you have to do it in 10 minutes of contact to try to get this stuff killed. It's a nightmare. I mean, it makes a nice thick habitat.
Yeah.
Horrible for everything else. And it will literally, it's like the kudzu of Illinois. If you ever been down in Tennessee and seen the kudzu growing up choking the trees, that's what our kudzu is. I'm pretty sure it's like the water hemp. You can't kill it.
Oh my gosh.
It's a nightmare, but it makes a lot of brush. But I just have another 40 that I just purchased right back here. And I just had my timber guy come in. I had 9 acres of timber on it. They're 32's tillable. And I went ahead and sold white oak, which it was, wasn't a lot of white oak on it. It was points that went out into a field. So there's great big old monster pin oaks on the points and the fence row. And a few of them's died, and a few of them's fallen in the field, and you can't hardly move them. It makes a big damn mess. And he come in there and marked them, and he's going to say, guys, so every timber contract I've done, most guys want 2 years to get in there and get them out. And we just signed this contract last week. There's only like 4 white oak and 3 walnut. The rest of it's basically what I call junk timber. And I told him I want all the hickories taken. I got a lot of hickories around here. And on that piece for sure, I want all the hickories taken. So he's going to go ahead. They're not worth much, but he's going to go ahead and take them. And then on this piece, since I am taking so much out and it's kind of on the edge of fields, I put in the contract that I want him to leave me open his main logging road he makes to pull trees out before he leaves. I want the tops piled along the road as a break and knock the ruts down and leave that open for me, because that is going to be a plot that is going to connect the field between the points. Put that in the contract. He's happy to do that. He knows clean his mess up when he leaves. Using that to my advantage, because I don't have anything big enough to move some of the treetops, but he will.
Uh-huh.
When Dad had his log, we put in the contract, don't cut during November and December deer season. So I mean, when you do that, your contract's wherever you make it, and come to an agreement. And I've seen now with the new growth and the thickness that I've created, because this piece over here is no cow pasture. When I was a kid, you could see all the way across 70 acres. And now you can't see hardly across anything. And our deers went through the roof. The deer hunting's been good the last several years, but our population holding on that little property has went nuts, making it thicker. And everybody kept saying, "Oh, log it, make it thicker." And I'm like, I ain't logging it. I don't want. I remember I've been in them trees for 30 years. I like them there. And when they started cutting, I remember one buddy of mine down here, Southern Illinois, and then Jared up there in Michigan. I was like, man, I don't know if I made the right decision. I'm over here having an anxiety attack, because my trees are all coming down. But, turn around 2 years later, and it's like, my God, I should have done this 20 years ago.
You guys see me, hear me, fine?
Yeah.
Yes, Braxton.
Did I get kicked out, dude? My Wi-Fi is a piece of junk.
No, you're good, buddy. I know where but
there's so many different ways you can go on with food plotting and timber and building structure. I've done a little bit of it all, and man, I enjoy that more than I enjoy hunting, to be more honest. And I've had several people kill their largest deer with me or on our farm, and that's what I like to see anymore. I've been successful and I've done pretty well, but when you can go sit there and build it and pinch them down, and you're sitting there with somebody and you watch a buck come in and he crosses the fence where you pull the barbed wire down and he falls up the side of the barrier you put and comes right out there on the rope you got hanging off the cedar stump out there. It's, you can make them do a lot of things, and that's what I enjoy. I just basically try to see how far I can push them, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I hear about everyone saying that they love the process more of it than the actual hunting part of it, because I feel like the hunting part of it after that point, it's just like vacation time. But with that being said, so I did notice that you are a scorer for Buckmaster. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I've been an official BTR scorer for probably 4 years now, 4 seasons now. I think I started in 18 or 19. Those who don't know the difference in a BTR, Boone and Crockett, Pope and Young. Boone and Crockett and Pope and Young are the same scoring system. Pope and Young, of course, archery. Boone and Crockett would be your firearm, but a Boone and Crockett scorer can score Pope and Young, but a Pope and Young scorer cannot score Boone and Crockett. So most of you guys are already both. And you start getting into deductions and measurements, and people don't understand that to an aspect. They basically consider a perfect deer a 10-pointer. And I'm going to throw a little bit out there, and I probably got some Boone and Crockett guys who probably see this and probably call me out on it. But I was at a deer show one time, and the guy had a big non-typical. He's like, how come it scored this? How do you get deduction on a non-typical? It's supposed to count it all. I'm like, well, you get a deduction to Boone and Crockett on non-typicals because they score that non-typical as a 10-point buck. And they take the deduction off that 10-point frame. So if this G2 is 9 inches and this G2 is 7 inches, you lose that 2 inches on a 10-point frame. Now, all the other trash and bullshit it's got going on, that's your non-typical points that get added extra. That is how you get deductions on a non-typical rack. And there seems to be a big reason that some guys don't understand that. And I've been at deer shows where it's been a knockdown, drag-out fight. I was sitting there with Luke Brewster, Illinois, killed the big non-typical, Illinois world record non-typical. His deer was there and had my deer there because the same taxidermist mounted both our deer. And boy, it got in the biggest damn knockout and drag out and over some stuff. And Luke goes, I don't like this. And I said, if you're ready, he grabbed that big old deer head and I grabbed his pedestal. We ran outside and shoved in his truck because people were getting mad. A guy's deer head got dropped. And it was all because people don't understand. And they'll have, oh, my buddy said it scored 215. And yeah, well, I scored at 173. It's a hell of a big deer, but it's not no 215, So what BTR Buckmasters is, on a typical deer, it's virtually the same thing, but no deduction. I mean, you measure everything the same. Your tines all start the same or wet, but they count it all, no deduction. If he grows it, he gets it. And for years, Buckmasters did not count the spread. They counted only bone. And then they called the spread measurement, adding the spread a bragging rights score. But they went ahead and implemented that into the score several years ago. But if you get the Buckmaster book and you look up deer, it has the bone on bone score, and then you'll see what it scores with a spread. So that's their scoring system is basically if he grows it, he gets it. I got a big Boone and Crockett non-typical I killed back in 17, and it's got a point. It's got a kicker. It's webbed out. So it's 1.25 inches. So it counts. Inch long counts, right? It's 1.5 inches wide. In Boone and Crockett, if it's wider than it is long, it doesn't count. And then I had 2 more that were a point off a point. They didn't count them either. So my big buck is in Buckmasters at 24 points, 214 inches. And he is in Boone and Crockett at 201 inches and 19 points. That's the difference in the scoring on non-typical.
Wow.
Yeah.
What
And that's
qualifies
what people
Boone and Crockett? What qualifies for Boone and Crockett? Isn't it like 180?
185 be Boone and Crockett non-typical, 170 typical. So I didn't know this until I got my deer done. I had no retired DNR guy do my Boone and Crockett score. And I wasn't a Buckmaster scorer at this point. This is how I got into Buckmaster scoring, actually, was because I killed that deer on a Friday, and by Sunday somebody was calling me. I mean, it was social media is a double-edged sword sometimes, but at that particular time, it worked for me. Met a lot of good people. Go another week, and then all of a sudden here come the haters. Social media can be a nightmare in this industry. But Boone and Crockett. So what I have to do? Had to wait 60-day drying. I was married at that time, so my wife at that time went with me. She had to sign affidavit. I had to provide pictures of the rack from all angles. I had to have the old man score it. Once it was scored, Boone and Crockett, don't go to another Boone and Crockett score. It's called score chasing. It's really shunned upon. You can't just go around and try to get somebody to score the next biggest deer. And there have been several big deer killed in the last few years. I'm not going to do name drops, but there's been some record changes. And there has been some big discrepancies brought up with Pope and Young and Boone and Crockett and score chasing, and it's crazy when you get to that level. So I'm not part of that. I'm not part of the Boone and Crockett. It's been around longer than BTR. State records, world records, probably in our lifetime will always be Boone and Crockett. You're never going to, but Buckmasters has their records as well. Like Milo Hansen is not number 1 in Buckmaster's book. Johnny King is. Johnny King, number 8 in Boone and Crockett because of that web split G2 and 3. That's just, and there's another scoring. You ever heard of the water displacement scoring? You drop the whole rack skull plate in the water. However much the water rises, you divide that by the square footage of water to what the deer will score.
Really?
They say it's the only true accurate way to measure a deer rack because it is absolutely measuring every square inch of it because it's surrounded by water. But I've never seen anybody do it. I've just read about it. But no, I do Buckmasters. I just do all out gross. The more I've done it, the more guys seem to like it. It's real popular down south, of course, Buckmasters, Montgomery, Alabama. If you come up here where I'm at and started doing it, and guys liked it a little bit better because he gets everything. The deer gets what he grows. Now, back what you were asking about Boone and Crockett, is 170 typical, 185 non-typical. Well, 170, Boone and Crockett, you put your name in the book. I always want my name in that book. I know a lot of people kill a lot of big deer. They will not put their name in the book. I don't want nobody knowing. That has been a goal of mine to get in that book, and it was a goal that I knew would never happen, and I got lucky. But they tell me it's only in the book for a few years, and then they toss it out. To be in the book for a lifetime, it's got a net 195. At least that's non-typical, and mine did. So he's in the book for life. So he's in, I don't know, Boone and Crockett, volume, whatever. He's in the Boone and Crockett all-time whitetail. He's in the Boone and Crockett lifetime records, blah, blah, blah. He's in the Buckmaster. I put in the Buckmaster too, and that's where I got associated with Buckmasters was, I can do that. I've been scoring deer forever, and I ain't got no credibility. I mean, it ain't nothing for my driveway to line up during gun season to score deer. It's just I've always done it. And if I do this, at least I can give guys a certificate, and put them in a book. And the numbers for Buckmaster are a lot less than what Boone and Crockett is. So you can get in the book with a 140 gun or a 105 bow. So a kid can go out with a crossbow. And Buckmaster is the crossbow category that Pope and Young does not. And Buckmaster is a velvet category that Boone and Crockett does not. So
Oh, wow.
you can kill a velvet buck with a crossbow, and I can score it. Other Boone and Crockett can't. Cody, I don't say Cody Wells, that ain't it. Guy in Canada kills monster mule deer, absolute freaking giants, big old drop tines. Always on TV all the time. I can't think. Cody and Kelsey. I talked to him here just a while back at a show. Anyways, he killed a mule deer. I was watching a show the other day on YouTube, and it was basically world record. But to be deemed it, yeah, you've got world record, he had to peel the velvet off and have it scored, and he chose not to. So technically, it's not. I mean, it's the world record, non-typical mule deer archery, but he chose not to peel the velvet off and put it in the book. I mean, he knows he's got it. Everybody knows he's got it.
Yeah.
But to be the official, you got to peel the velvet off. I scored a buck for a guy this year. Girl went to high school with, her husband killed it. It was a doe-ish. It had male and female parts. He'd been on trail cam for 9 years, and it would always grow like a cactus buck. It'd grow a tine, it'd break it off, and then it would grow more. Well, there's no categories for that in Boone and Crockett and Pope and Young and Velvet, but for Buckmaster is. And I went back to the old man that scored my big deer. I met with him. I said, let's walk through this one. And we scored this cactus velvet at like 36 points at 148. You know, other books don't even have that option. So that's the cool part about Buckmasters. I really like. I talked earlier, the gentleman that gave me my first bow, he was associated with Buckmasters back in the early 90s, you know, when they were taking off, late 80s. And he's always just a good friend of my dad's, kind of got my dad into hunting, gave me my first bow, kept me hunting. He got killed in a car wreck when I was in high school, so I still have the bow. I never got a chance to give it back to him, but he's the one that kind of let my dad loosen the rope on letting me go out and hunt. And like I said, the deer wasn't what it is now. It's definitely a lot more deer and a lot better deer than there was. But, I mean, my first year bow hunting, I seen 4 deer the entire season, and it was like, holy shit, I seen 4 this year. You know, it was a big deal. Township I live in, they said in 87 they killed 2 deer. Everybody hunted together back then. And I caught the end of that. Everybody still hunted together. Well, now everybody's got stuff leased up and out of town, and that's just part of that double-edged sword. Everything's leased up, and you don't know your neighbors anymore and all that. But back then, you still hunted together. And the entire township, they shot 2 does, and it was like talked about forever. Oh my God, them boys killed 2 does this year. You know, my dad didn't see his first deer till he was 14 years old.
Really?
And the state park I lived by was bought and built and opened in 65. And they made the man-made lake, closed off the big creeks, and they introduced deer 67 or 68, I think, which there was already deer here, but very few. They released a buck and 5 does back in, I think, 67 or 68. And then they introduced turkeys. We didn't have this stuff. I'm not in like the hills of Illinois. I'm in I'm 2 hours east of St. Louis. So basically where I'm at is the ag ground, but the trees break to flat. You go an hour that way, 30 minutes that way, and it is flat for the rest of Illinois. You go 30 minutes that way, you're in the hills and trees. I'm right at this breaking point. But they released turkeys on the state park. I don't know the year, but their very first turkey season they had on the state park was 91. So, I mean, you and me, it don't sound like very long ago. Yes, I still think that's 10 years ago, you know, but it's a lot has changed in 30 years of me being brought up hunting. And like I started out when everybody still hunted together and you rarely seen stuff, you know. A lot of the old timers around that did hunt went down to Shawnee and hunted. There wasn't enough deer around here to hunt. Everybody load up and go somewhere else. And back when my dad was trying to get into hunting, there just wasn't a lot. You know, you seen some here and there. I mean, it maybe not have been as bad as I'm saying in spots. My farm was where I grew up. There wasn't nothing. I killed a deer when I was 9. My first morning, I killed one. And I didn't kill another deer until I was a freshman in high school. And that was my first buck. And I didn't kill a buck with a bow until I was a sophomore in college. I was 19 if I ever shot a buck with a bow.
Oh, wow.
Multiple Boone and Crockett's, and I've done really, really well. But it was like, oh yeah, I mean, I ain't killed nothing. But I graduated high school, and I got 4 deer under my belt, and I hunted my butt off. I mean, that's how much things have changed. EHD smoked us in 12 bad. I mean, there was dead deer everywhere. Guys finding 10, 12, 15 dead deer in ponds, creeks, all these ag fields, the combines, guys are finding bean fields, running them up into the rotors, the combines. It was just nasty. Buzzards won't touch them. Coyotes won't bother them. EHD is a nasty thing. And we've had it since then. But we had it bad in 12. And it sucked. Like, you had to hunt again. Not saying I wasn't hunting, but like it was back when I was like 7th grade hunting. The only year I've never killed a deer since 2000 was in 13, the year after EHD. And the season runs to January, and I shot a doe finally in January, the last week in the season. But 13, I did not kill a deer. But I did in the 13th season, I guess, counting her. But it was just like you just didn't see him. And when you did see a deer, it's like, damn, I really don't want to shoot that one, you know. And
right,
it sounds like I'm overreacting, but I'm not. It was that bad to where some of the older guys around that did deer hunt gave it up. That's when they quit. Just because you had to hunt. And then when you did see him, it was like, well, that mindset is still there to some of us. And we're to the point now where we have a lot of deer. It will not surprise me having our EHD outbreak. We're due for it. But like right now, it's like, guys, it's okay to shoot some does. You know, we need to shoot. We've been on this hold back and you know, us that hunted hard in those days wasn't that long ago. I guess it was. Dang near 20 years ago, I guess, but now it's like it's okay, you know, we can shoot deer now. It's been 20 years and we're still like that's how bad it was. It like was so restrictive. It was like we'll never recover from this. God, I wish it was like it was back in the late 90s. Well, now we took 8 off the farm this year and we didn't put a dent in nothing. We took 5 of them was bucks, and there was 18 standing in the yard the other night, and it's like, okay. And that it's hard to be a farmer and a deer hunter. It's like, oh, they're eating all my damn crops. It's like, good, they're eating all my crops. You know, when you start collecting crop insurance because of deer damage, and it's like, yeah, maybe I ought to slim back a little bit here, but it's that's just where I hunt, you know, here in Illinois. And like I said, I'm at the breaking point. I don't hunt. I'm hunting ag fields, fence rows, and little timber. You go south, it's all timber. You go north, it's ditches and cornfields. I mean, it's the hunting up there an hour that way is a lot different an hour this way.
Really?
I've hunted other states, but I've never deer hunted other states. I've always just deer hunted Illinois. And I've duck hunted, turkey hunted, elk hunted, antelope. I've done other states, but I've never whitetail hunted other than here. But I've hunted with people that hunt an hour away, and they hunt a lot different than I do. You know, they're hitting that big timber and get down in deep draws. I'm sitting over here in a damn fence row because that's all I got. You know, fence row deer are hard to kill. One way in, one way out, and they can see all of it. And a fence row is a cold morning. I'm sure y'all sat in a fence row before. It gets damn cold when there ain't nothing blocking any wind. But
yeah, no, we hunt in timber right now, and yeah, it's nice when there's a little bit of wind because you get nice little blockage from it too. So.
Yeah. It's like we was talking earlier there that I've killed some really big deer on these little bitty points and fence rows, just like the big timber. Like they chase the does out to where as far as the doe's going to go, and she lays down that point out there in the edge of that field, and that's where he's at. You know, he's out there with her. He's not in that big timber. He's got her pushed out as far as he can get her to go before she stopped. And you know, during the rut, you'll see a lot of them like that pushed up in these fence rows, and you cannot get to them. I mean, you see them. You go around the other side and they sit there and watch you do it the whole time, you know.
All right.
I've watched deer get up with does and run sections, you know, driving along the truck, watching them just run, you know, a mile, 2 miles, just tongue hanging out, just going to the next fence row. And it's like, my God, did they ever stop? But it's definitely different than hunting big timber. I've never really hunted a big timber. I did with a buddy just, you know, it was probably about 15, 20 miles south of here on a big creek. And I'll tell you what, deer down there were different. They come in all dark and look muscular. You blink, them some bitches were gone. And here, like Jared from Michigan, have that podcast, he come down here and hunt, and had a blind, and it's got a muddy chair in it, and it squeaks like no other. And he's like, dude, that chair squeaked in Michigan. Them deer been gone. He's in there, and then little button buck just like, what was that? You know, looking up. Like, you can't get away with this stuff in Michigan. I'm like, yeah, I never have hunted it. I don't know. Well, I'm in the ag country. These deer see people and tractors every day. You know, they see four-wheelers every day. There's still some big ones here. They don't like to be messed with. They're lazy. If you approach them as they're lazy and let them have that little spot, makes it a hell of a lot easier on hunting them.
I know we were talking to my buddy Jake yesterday. He's talking about mature bucks and it's relative kind of where you're at. He was saying your more mature bucks there in Illinois act like around 4.5, 5. They're very smart at that age. Get to here, Michigan, deer acting like those 4 or 5-year-old deer out there. They're acting like that here in Michigan around 2, 3 years old because there's so much pressure here. And he was telling us some numbers compared to from Michigan to Illinois. There's just a lot less pressure on deer than it is down there.
I've heard Jared say the same thing about up there. And I live next to the state park, guys. It's public hunting. My backyard's public hunting. I just farm across the road from it. Like, I've done very well, but I've pulled ground off public hunting. I mean, the odds are stacked against me. I've hunted a lot of ghosts. I've had a lot of big deer that just disappeared, and they're probably on somebody's wall down in Alabama. I don't know. I've met some great guys from being around there, and I know what it's like being the out-of-state hunter because I've done it elsewhere. So, I've made some great friends. But, I mean, I'm hunting around the edge. My property I just purchased literally borders a state park. I mean, one side of the barbed wire fence is state ground, public, the other side's mine. I mean, it ain't like I've got some big honey hole. I've done pretty good on this ag ground fence rows where I'm at next to public. And I got to put all that towards the food plots and just spending time with them and trying to mess with them and trap them and just build off what I've done. And I never would have dreamed I'd harvested deer like I have, or even what my friends have been able to get on us or my family. It's just like this stuff was unheard of back then. You never even thought about it.
Right.
Now I've done it, and I've done it again. And that's kind of the weird thing. The first time I'd done it was like, one hit wonder. I'm like, hey, I'll take it. It's a giant. I'll take it. And then, I did it again, and it's like, oh, okay.
I think every hunter though deserves that once in a lifetime buck, at least in their own opinion or whatever. Everyone deserves. If you're a true whitetail hunter, everyone deserves that one buck that will just make you feel proud of. No, it doesn't matter what you get after that. You at least earn that one buck.
Now, don't get me wrong. I am not too proud to shoot a 4-year-old.
I was close.
What'd you say, bud?
So close.
You're close?
I was close.
You was close?
Year.
Man, when I killed that big deer, good friend of ours come over, and he's like, man, so now that you've got this one, you know what that'll look like. I'm like, I ain't too proud to shoot that. I will shoot that all day long. I love this too much. I got too much into this, and I don't get enough time to hunt. I am not going to go home empty-handed because I'm too proud to shoot an 8-pointer that's, 4 years old or a mature buck because he's broke, because he's not 180 or something. I've killed a lot. I've killed a lot smaller deer than that 200 since I've killed him.
Yeah.
It's just, some guy, I'm not going to shoot one unless it's bigger than one I've killed. It's like, I'm not going to not enjoy this for the next 30 years or however long the Lord gives me. I'm going to hunt it. I'm not going to just call it quits. I won't shoot unless it goes in the wall. No, I'm going to enjoy the hell out of this because I've got a lot in this. But like you was talking about the age, I feel like in my area, the deer make the biggest growth jump in antlers on a healthy deer. And so one thing people got to get out of their head, I've noticed, is that not every deer is going to be Boone and Crockett. Not every deer is going to be a giant. He might be 7 years old and might be a big old gnarly thing. He might be this dang big and it's always ever been. He's still a mature buck. He is still a trophy buck. That deer is going to be harder than hell to kill. Not every deer is going to be Boone and Crockett. But that 3 to 4 in my area is where I see a jump. Biggest jump. Now, I'm not saying 5 and 6 he'll be bigger. Most likely he will be, but that 3 to 4. And I got proof of that even in my 200 I killed. I have a shed, and he was such a regular on the farm. There was a little bit of 12-pointer. Kicker on 2 and split brow time. He poked his eye out in December. I guess fighting. It wouldn't shine in the pictures. So here's this little buck walking around with an eye not shining. Well, next year he slammed on some crazy mass, and I was like, holy crap, blind eye. I'm like, that deer blew up. Holy mackerel. And I hunted him, and I shot him with a bow in the shoulder, and I didn't kill him. And the next year, I walked back in the bean field, and I'm looking because I heard there's a nice 10-pointer back there. There's a really nice 10-pointer. And I've got my binoculars, a pair of blue jeans, and all of a sudden this absolute monster just steps out. And I pulled up, and I seen all the kickers, and I knew it was him. I got the hell out of there. I'm like, holy mackerel. And I went back the next night, camouflage, spotting scope, nothing. Next night, nothing. Next night, nothing. I'm like, man, did I really see that? Am I just like hoping I seen that? I went and drove a darn T-post in the bean field, put a camera on it. And I went back and checked a week later, and I had him. And he was an absolute monster with the blind eye. And I have all those sheds, but the one. So I figured him at a 2-year. You think a 12-pointer is not a year and a half. I guess he could have been. I figured he was 2. That deer would have scored around 120 inches. The next year, I have both sides. The year I shot him with a bow. If you put a 15-inch spread on it, he's 156. When I killed him the next year, he was 214. He put on over 60 inches from 3 to 4.
That's insane.
And when he was 2, or a year and a half, 2.5, that first year, he was everywhere. I almost accidentally shot him one time. I was walking up and I seen his rack stood up on the edge of a pond dam. And I got on him, had that split tine. And I'm like, oh shoot, that's him. I done passed him with a bow like once or twice. You know, he was always there. It's like he just kind of made home our farm. He was always there. And man, I begged neighbors, do not shoot this deer. Will end up being no one ever seen him but me. I guess he just never left the hay lot. But next year he would have been 3.5. He started moving, and I had pictures of him in about a mile difference, and still really wasn't being seen, just me. You know, I was on him, shot him with a bow, disappeared, found a shed, had a couple pictures after season, he made it. But the year 4, I shot the deer at 4.5 years old, and I've had guys like, why didn't you let him grow? It's like, really? He's 214 inches. You let him grow, you know? But at 4, he was being seen by everybody. I got a picture of him on my cell phone. A buddy sent me. He was standing by my mailbox one night, and the guy pulled up there. A buddy of mine rolled the window down, took a picture with a cell phone.
Really?
And I had another buddy one night call me, what are you doing? I'm laying in bed. He's standing by your bedroom window. Leave him alone. He's there chasing a doe. Leave him alone. I got home from hunting one night, and because I had a picture of him, Dad shelled the corn, pushed him out. I knew he was in that damn corn. We had standing corn here, standing corn here. So I hunted there. Corn's gone. Dad's over here shelling. I come home that night, and I pull in the yard, and the damn buck is standing right down here in the corner of my yard. He come out of the corn, Dad's shelling. Blind eye and all. So now I've seen him on hoof at 200, you know. Like, holy shit. And I didn't think he was I still to this day do not think that deer was 200. And if you look at the mount, you won't think he's 200, but he's got a lot of mass, and he's got 32 inches of extra on him. But and then a neighbor seen him, and then another neighbor seen him. Then he was crossing the road, and they seen him on Ford, and a guy from Florida seen him, and a guy over here seen him, and then the public guys were seeing him. It was like, this deer is going to die. Here I've watched him all this time. There's no way in heck. And I was back to job working. I've been laid off, no vacation time. I had one day off. I took Friday of gun season, and I was hunting, and I'm like, hey, he's not here. And I go, he's not over there. I said, I bet he's laying right there in that honeysuckle. And I walked around that point in that wheat field, and he stood up out of the scrape, and I dropped him. Wow. And even then, I didn't know he was that big. I was shaking like hell once I got up there. I was like, yes, 160. That's how I score antlers. And I was 40 inches off. I mean, when they got that dang big, it does. I was shook up. But that deer's only 4.5. I mean, I'll lay everything I got on him. People want to argue with me. That deer's not an old deer. And I got the sheds to prove it. I'm like, hey, you know that's him. Well, fine. How many of them got an eye poked out? He actually had his eye. It wasn't poked out. It was white. Oh. He must have poked it while fighting or ran a stick in it or something. So I got him mounted. I had him mounted with the white eye. And now everybody gets them mounted with the white eye. I did it back in like 2017 and made like, it was in a couple magazines and stuff, and was in Whitetail Imperials newsletter, and it was in Buckmasters, and not everybody mounts them with white eye. But yeah, that was definitely a cool deer, and I that deer taught me a lot. I didn't have the time to hunt him the last like 2 years as I normally would have been years ago. You know, I was working, things were changing.
Yeah.
And that deer taught me a lot, and it was like, if I just leave him alone, he won't go nowhere. And that's basically what I've done. And, you know, this year I shot a buck right over here, went 162, and he was a 7-year-old. Been on him for a few years, got some sheds. Just one of those that just, this year I kept saying he had Alzheimer's or something, because I get pictures of him, just no rhyme or reason. By himself, he'd just be with the wind blowing up his butt or going upwind. He'd be over here and he'd be over there. And it's like, this deer has no freaking pattern. How the hell am I going to kill him? You know, he just he just was everywhere.
Yeah.
And it was just weird. Well, he had a doe. So I didn't mess with him. Boom, he's got a doe in that fence row. I went in that night and killed him. Year before last, had a drop tine buck that I'd been on for a few years. Couldn't hunt him for 2 years because I was injured. He was a little 10-pointer, once again, at 3 to 4 or 5. And I found a shed in the field. Next year, he threw a drop tine. Neighbor found no shed, beat me to it. And then the next year, he blew up bigger and threw another big drop tine. And knew he was there, disappear for a week, show up, disappear. I'm on 1/8 of an acre. And I have a rope. I've made ropes for years. I know it's popular now. I've been making ropes for years. And for buddies, or now I'm making them and selling quite a few of them now, actually. But I made it for years. Well, that 1 year, I was out of rope. I had a corn cob. So I took a zip tie, hung a dang corn cob out of the cornfield and tree limb, and put some gland on it and got that little 10-point using that corn cob. And the next year, I put a rope on it, and he used that rope, and that was his scrape. The next year, he come back on that rope. That was his scrape, and that's what got him killed. It's 1/8 of an acre. It's a 20-acre field with a 125-foot buffer around it of quail grass, and then 1/8 of an acre of pine trees, and then it's all property splits. So I got this. All he's doing is walking on me just enough to hit his rope, and he's gone. And some littler, younger bucks started using his rope, and that pissed him off. And I waited. And they're like, "Why aren't you hunting that deer?" I'm like, I'm waiting. And Jared and Brian, my Habitat podcast, were both here hunting at that time. And it was hotter than hell. They'd come down bow hunted that year, and it was bad. They actually were hunting the deer that I killed this year. They were hunting him while I went after drop time. And it was hotter than hell. And like, go get him. Nope. I was just nope. And then all of a sudden, boom. A couple bucks worked his scrape. He went out there and laid in front of that scrape for 3 hours that night, from like 11 to 2 in the morning. He laid right in front of that scrape, right in front of my blind, ground blind. He's close. Okay. Next day, I get up to go hunting. That next morning, I get a picture at 5:40. He's going to bed. I didn't even hunt. Went back to bed. The boys went hunting. Well, I go after that deer. He said, no, not yet. He is bedded too close. I know he's there. So I hunted him that night. A bunch of deer come out, not him. Next morning, didn't see him. Next night, second night, killed him. He come in with the doe locked down. It was 73 degrees on November 2nd, and he was locked down with the doe.
Oh,
So
man.
Too nice to kill him on 1/8 of an acre. And all that really was because, I mean, cell cameras were definitely a help on them 2 deer I'm talking about. I didn't have cell cameras back when I killed the big one. But it just by not being there and letting him have his damn rope, just give him that one thing that was his. It's crazy. It started with a corn cob and a little 10-point buck. And 2 years later, it's 186 inches with 11 3/4 inch drop tine. And I got all the sheds and the pictures to prove it. And it's just all over a damn rope. That's what got him killed.
It's cool to see a plan like that kind of work out, if you want to call it a plan. You just like, I wouldn't say a plan, but it was like, you know what, I'm just going to let him be. And it's cool to see how that worked out for you. And it's continuing to work out for you.
Well, these bigger deer that I have been blessed with getting have come from not being able to hunt as much due to just adulting or working or just other reasons. But I'm also getting them on these smaller points and smaller properties. And, you know, you hear guys talk about those little spots. And to where if I did go in there, I ain't got to blow him out 30 yards. He's on somebody else's ground. I mean, I blow him out, he's gone. So, I mean, you don't get a lot of opportunities when you do that. And I've hunted a lot of ghosts, and I've messed up a lot, and I've blown a lot of them out.
Yeah.
Because you can really, it's a gamble every time you go in there. I got lucky 3 times. 3 times I got lucky on 3 really good deer. I can tell you hundreds that I didn't get lucky on. I mean, there has been a lot of them that were nice deer or just deer in general. You know, when I was younger, getting that close and just one little thing and they're gone forever, or they catch your wind, or there's always something.
Right.
So it's not like you just got lucky, walked out there and shot a big one on, 2 acres. I can't even tell you how many times I've messed up and the things I've done wrong. It's just trial and error. It's just I've been doing it enough that you get lucky every once in a while, but my averages are not as good as they sound.
Oh, that's how you learn, though, is from the, I wouldn't say mistakes, but the downfalls. And that's what the biggest thing I love about hunting. But with that being said, it's time to be wrapping up tonight's show. Braxton, was there any questions or anything like that for Jordan that you might have?
I didn't really have any. I think one was, what do you normally look for when you're shed hunting? Like, where do you normally look? Like your go-to spots?
So my go-to spots are like a wheat field and ag field, because that's where they're feeding. You know, at that time of year shed hunting, there's no pressure. They're not rutting. There's nothing out of the ordinary. They're food, bed, food, bed, food, bed. Find the food, find the bed, walk between it. Anywhere that deer shakes its head, a main fence crossing, a main creek crossing, and the edge of the ag fields, edge of wheat fields, and the bedding area in the timber. I mean, you narrow it down to bedding area, the food, the travel in between, and anywhere he might jar his head. You narrow it down to those four, you'll find sheds. And just train yourself to look for the white, like you see guys train dogs or whatever. Just, you know, I've done it for so long, so many years. I mean, I find them from the road. I have found several from the road. I found one the other day, a damn skull had come over from Iowa, nice 8-pointer laying out there about 100 yards off the road in the brush. You spot that. And there's guys I shed hunt with too, that have been doing it for just not longer than I have. And they're the same way. They'll spot 100 yards away and everybody races over and tackles each other for it. But it's a lot of walking, man. It's a lot. It really is. But you can kind of hone in on some of them better spots, and you can kind of call some spots out. And the biggest thing, too big, get the sun to your back. If you're walking into the sun, everything looks mirrored. Get the sun to your back, and you'll start seeing them shine. And I always carry binoculars, because there's been too many times I spotted one, nope, that's not a deer antler. And then I walk over there and it is. Or, oh, that can't be a deer antler, it's too big. That's a good feeling when it is. So always carry binoculars, always get the sun to your back, and just cover those 4 spots. Just keep it simple. Food, bed, food, bed.
When would be like a good general time frame?
So right now, we still got a few bucks holding here in Illinois. It's weird. Every year is different. Some years you get a good drop. Some years you get a spread out drop. And there's so many variations, and depends on who you read and what you want to believe, and the moon and the rut and the testosterone. I mean, yeah, you could go on for hours talking about that. But,
true.
My rule of thumb, and I have found them earlier than that, just messing around, but my rule of thumb is Valentine's Day. I have
been hearing like general consensus is like mid-February.
Yeah, when I'm frost seeding, I'm shed hunting.
Yeah,
and I find sheds while I'm frost seeding. It's February. There's good 2 or 3 weeks there that, at least in Illinois, that it's worth being out there walking in the cold. You get your frost seeding out, do little sheds, do a little scouting. Everything's still dead. The deer honing in on their bed and food. You get a better idea of what they're doing. A lot of guys talk about scouting in the off season. You can learn a lot about everything in February. So.
I know my wife's been mad at me. She's like, we'll be driving down the road, and I'll be like, oh, wow, look at that deer. I'm like, really? No, I take that back. It's like 5,000 yards away, and she's like, really? You can see that thing? But when I ask for ketchup out of the fridge, you ask, well, where's the ketchup in here? It happens every time. So, yeah, it's funny how you mentioned that. Like, yeah. But we've been shed hunting a couple times, just no luck, really. And sometimes, I think sometimes maybe we just don't find them well. But I've also heard sometimes other critters get to those antlers before we even get a chance to see them. Right.
I mean, I've found several hundred deer sheds, but I've also been walking since I was 11 years old too, But
trained eye.
Anymore, I just kind of shed hunt where I hunt, before I try to go everywhere. And back then it wasn't a big deal. But now everything's leased up and things have got popular, and it's just, I can't go places I used to go, or other people moved in on it, and guys always make things competitive. Well, you add deer hunting into it, just gets that much worse, But
right.
I don't know. I maybe got 15 this year. I think last year I had like 22. I know guys that are finding 100 a year and all that, and I'm not that guy, but I'll hang around the farm here and find 10 or so, and enjoy it. Don't go out there like I used to, but I still love doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something I know that we definitely want to get more into. But Jordan, for anyone that wants to be able to reach out to you or learn more about you, how can they find you?
Biggest thing is just reach me to Instagram or Facebook. You can also, if you follow the Habitat podcast, sometimes Jared can get, I'm on there some with him, and him and Brian kind of got a good way to reach me. I've just kind of been around some of the industry a little bit. I'm out there, I think there's some stuff on YouTube. You ain't got to look too far to see all the things I'm at. I'll give you one for your Hoyt boy there. There's a video on YouTube of me blowing a Matthews up shooting at an 8-point buck.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A little buck I probably didn't need to be shooting anyways, but I was filming, camera on me, camera on the deer, and I hit that release and that bow blew up.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I've seen that so much recently. I really hope that never happens.
Right. And it was more so I believe I had something caught in my cam. I really did. I'm not blaming Matthews at all, because back when I used to shoot a lot or, shoot 3D, like I roar out bows. I broke bows. And I can tell you companies that said sorry, and I can tell you companies that fixed everything and never said a word, But it just happened to be that day the cameras had the camera rolling when it happened. But something hit my cam, bent my cam, and the bow never actually exploded. The string come off the cams and it locked. The cables were still holding it, so it never did a full flex. But the arrow broke as soon as I shot, and I had an HHA sight with a lens on it. And when the arrow broke, I had wrapped arrows. The rear of the arrow shaft hit that sight, went up, hit the sight, hit that lens, and bent the sight off the bow, and just filled carbon splinters everywhere, and just whipped the living hell out of my arm. It was October, and I had like a jacket and a coat on. It still whipped the hell out of me, though.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and I'm just like, what in the hell? And this was on an old video camera and a little before GoPro. It's not that clear. It's pretty grainy, but you can kind of see what happens. And I jumped, the deer jumps, It was, of course, it had to be on film. But
right.
You do it as much as we do it. You've done it. We're going to make our mistakes. Stuff's going to break, Just kind of learn to take it and learn from it and go.
Well, I'm glad to hear, though, it didn't cause too much of a damage, though, on you. Yeah. So glad you walked away in a healthy way. But Jordan, I'd like to say thank you for taking the time to come on the show with us. Really do appreciate it, and can't say thank you enough, man.
Yeah, guys, I appreciate it. I always enjoy talking and learning. Maybe tune in a little more. Maybe next time we talk a little more in depth or something. Maybe you meet aside. Maybe I can learn a little bit, kind of what you got going on up there. And it's always changing, and it's weird now with hunting how big technology's played into it. It's changed so much.
Yeah.
Even. Yeah, we only been here for 30 years, probably the same time as you've been hunting. And and then seeing him come up at 18 and seeing what he's got versus what we had, and it's just, it ain't been that long ago when we were overdraws and double X78s and muzzies, and now everything, now FOC's big. Now we want all the weight up front, where 25 years ago we wanted no weight up front, and we wanted short arrows and wheel. It's just, and the camo's changed, and just the whole approach to deer hunting in general's changed, and deer are a lot bigger now than they were back then.
Yeah, it's very scientific. It almost feels like.
It's definitely, it's fun to talk about. It's fun to look back on. I wish, there'd been cell phones back then to just kind of show what it was
like.
I'm talking like an old head. It's just that I started when I was 9 and I never stopped, and I hit it hard, and I'm 38 and I've never stopped. I've never missed an opening day.
Yeah.
So, you only get so many of those. So,
well, we'll definitely make sure to capitalize on the days that we can hunt. But, yeah, Jordan, we'll definitely stay in touch, my brother. Thanks again, man.
Yep, guys, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that was a fun episode. Granted, every episode we do here in Whitetail Advantage is fun.
Yeah. Definitely learned a lot about food plots.
Yeah, definitely going to be changing the thought process that I was already thinking, wanting to do out there. Definitely going to be looking at it at a different angle now after talking to him.
Yeah, for sure.
But with that being said, Braxton, it's going to be time to end the show tonight. No, nothing. Okay, I'll end it with this. But don't forget, if you do feel like tuning into the show, we do a show Monday through Thursday at 8:30 p.m. Actually, getting too quick there. Monday through Thursday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be live on Facebook and X and YouTube. Feel free to check us out on our previous episodes. They're on our podcast platforms, as well as the other pages as well. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll make sure to tune in for tomorrow's show.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Whitetail Advantage Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next time.